Sports Bash Saturday here on 97.3 ESPN. You know what tonight is? It's UFC 200. The big fights are on pay-per-view tonight. You've heard about Brock Lesnar fighting Mark Hunt, but that's not even the biggest fight. No, there's title fights. We'll have Frankie Edgar versus Jose Aldo for the interim featherweight title, and Miesha Tate takes on Amanda Nunes on the fight card as well tonight for the women's bantamweight title, all on pay-per-view. Also, the prelims are on Fox Sports 1 tonight, and one of the guys fighting tonight on that prelim card is the former UFC welterweight champion, Johny Hendricks. He's taking a couple minutes out of his busy day to chat with us right now. Talk a little bit about your perspective going into this fight as a guy who is a former champion and working your way back to another title shot.
Really is focus on Kelvin Gastelum. Make sure that I get my hand raised. However that is or whatever I need to do, that's what I have to do. Getting overlooked, look at the card. It's pretty stacked. You got title fights and you got Cain Velasquez. It is a big card. Just to be on the card is actually, if people want to overlook that, that's fine, because for me it's just a fact of the matter that, it's always the biggest card when you hit 100, 200, and 300. Whenever we hit those, and you're able to beat on them, that means that you're doing something right. That you were able to, that you bring fans in, and that's what it is to me. That's what makes me happy.
Johnny, you're coming in this fight, you mentioned against Gastelum. He's a guy who, like you, does cut a lot of weight to get down to welterweight. Talk about some of the advantages you feel like that you have in this fight over him.
I feel like a little bit of everywhere. You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure that it's not cockiness, it's just confidence. I want to believe that, because as a fighter, you have to believe that you're better than the person you're fighting. If you don't, then you're already beat before you get in there. So I feel like I'm better everywhere. I just got to execute. How do I execute? I execute by going out there, making sure that I stay focused on the task at hand, meaning that this week I don't let my mind venture off anywhere else. I make sure that my main focus is Gastelum and Gastelum only. I think that's sort of been my biggest downfall, is that I'm always like, what's next? What's next? Well, this time it's not that. It's going to be from here on out is whoever I'm fighting at this point, and then moving from there.
We're talking with Johny Hendricks, a former UFC welterweight champion, as part of the UFC 200 fight card on pay-per-view. Let's talk about your background a little bit. When you were at Oklahoma State, you were a national champion in wrestling, and then you came to MMA, and all of a sudden people saw the power coming out of your hands as a striker. Talk about how being an elite wrestler helped prepare you to be in MMA.
I think that the good Lord blessed me with a lot of stuff, meaning that my background of growing up, wrestling is such a hard sport, but it taught me so much about myself. Whenever I got to college, it taught me, even in high school, it taught me what I could train through and what I couldn't, how to push myself, how to find coaches that can push you. And so whenever you're sitting there, I look at my career, whenever I think about fighting, there's been times that, you hurt something, you're like, hey, coach, give me 3 days. I know I can be back in 3 days. Just give me 3 days off, and then I'll be back stronger, and it'll be healed. But then there's also times that you're like, hey, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to train through it, train through the pain, and then get to the fight, and then let your body heal. So that's something that I've learned through wrestling, and that's one of the things I think prepare me the best, is to understand your body and how it can actually benefit you or not benefit you, but where it's not going to hurt you to damage it anymore.
Also about your wrestling background, talk about what led you to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is a school that's got a wrestling tradition. What led you to go there originally?
You know what? I was a big OU fan all my life. We Crimson and Cream, that's all we thought about. And Coach Smith came to me and was like, hey, I would like you to come there. And whenever I did the recruiting trip, the whole team showed up. It was like a team atmosphere. And that's what I wanted. You know, you live by the team and die by the team, definitely in college wrestling. And whenever I went there and I saw the way that everybody, they liked what I liked. You know, outdoors, having fun, but also focusing when it comes time. You know, there's a time that you got to cuddle that off and you got to focus on the task at hand. And that's sort of what I enjoyed. And also to be coached by Coach Smith, you know, and still today, I tell everybody, I'm like, I believe that he could go to the Olympics and win. You know, that's how good of a wrestler he is. So I got to wrestle with him when I was in college too. So he still competed against me and other guys in the room. So not only being coached by him, but also having somebody that can wrestle with you and do those things is a blessing.
Talking with Johny Hendricks, UFC 200, all part of UFC International Fight Week. UFC 200 is the capitalization of that fight week. UFC 200 on pay-per-view. Johny, I want to ask you a couple of questions that the audience kind of get to know you as a person a little bit. First of all, tell everybody about the history behind the nickname Big Rig that you have.
So I had an F-350. I had a bumper, front and back ranch hand bumpers, and somebody. His name was Tom. He said it was like Big Rig. And they always said I hit like a mad truck. And, well, it stuck. You know, for the John Fish fight, they said, do you have a nickname? I was like, I do not. And that's when one of my old coaches came in and said, yes, he does. And whenever I went in, and so I put it in there. And whenever I put it in there, they announced it. And then I ended up knocking him out. And, well, the rest is history.
I also wanted to ask you, you have 4 kids, and a lot of guys your age, they don't always actually have families and kids. So can you talk about the importance of family in your life as being a fighter? Because some guys are fighters, are very successful, and they really don't have a lot of, they have, friends and family, but they don't actually have their own family unit going on.
You know what? My family's everything to me. Like I said, the good Lord blessed me in many ways. One, to be able to do something that I enjoy. 2, with a wife and a family that nothing else matters. So the most important thing in my life is my family and my kids. And so whenever I sit there and I'm fighting for them. I do this for them. That's sort of what helps me get through the day, is that whenever I get home and I see my 3 little girls and my wife holding my baby boy, that you're just, words can't explain how happy that can make somebody. And for me, like I said, that's everything. Fighting will come and go. One day it will go. But my family, I never want to let go, and I know they're never going to go anywhere. And so for me, the most important thing in my life is to make sure that, I do everything I can now, so whenever I do retire, I can spend more time with them.
One final question before I let you go, Johny. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. Looking ahead, you're going to be on the prelim card for UFC 200. Those fights will be shown on Fox Sports 1. For those who haven't seen you fight before, tell people what makes watching you fight so unique.
What makes me fight so unique is that I'm always trying to. I don't think I get booed very often. I think I've only gotten booed once in my career. And that's sort of what makes it exciting, is that I'm always going to be on the go. There's always going to be action. There's always something that could happen. And not only that, but you don't ever know when the fight could be over. That's sort of the beauty that I bring to the fight table, is that any punch could be their last. And that's really what I'm looking at, is not trying to finish them, but what I'm going to do is I want to put on a good show for 15 minutes. And if it does, the opportunity does present itself, I will look for the finish.
Johny Hendricks fights at UFC 200 facing Kelvin Gastelum. He's part of the prelim card of UFC 200. Johny, appreciate you taking the time today.
Hey, thank you, and you have a wonderful day.